In this episode, we ride a chicken boat, tube through an underground river, and dive to 120 feet to see some man-eating sharks. My wife and I are on a motorcycle trip through Mexico, Central, and South America. So bring an appetite for adventure because we're hungry riders.
So we headed into Belize, which marks our second international border crossing, our third country total. We've been in Mexico for 2 months, and now it's time to see Belize. Started going on this little 2-lane road through some little towns and villages when all of a sudden a pack of cruiser riders zooms past us.
They were going really fast.
Way faster than we can.
Yeah, faster than our bikes are capable of. But somehow we caught up to them at a military checkpoint.
Okay, where are you going?
Belize City.
Belize City?
Yeah.
Follow us.
Alright, we'll try.
And we followed along with them for a while until they finally pulled over to stop for a drink, and they bought us some drinks.
They bought us some drinks, we got to talking, and it turns out that one of them would be able to help us with the little problem we were having. We were planning on going to one of the islands off of the coast of Belize, but the problem is what to do with our bikes. We couldn't really ship them over to the island with us, so we were trying to figure out a hotel we could park at or something along those lines.
You have to pay someone to watch them for a week, an indefinite amount of time. And this guy offered to do it for us, which is really cool. And he also offered us a ride on a chicken boat,
which we'll get to later.
So we stayed over in Ladyville, which is near Belize City, and we stopped there because we were going to do some more volunteering with the Muskoka Foundation.
And this one was actually more of a, what they call a partner scan, is to see if one of the organizations in Ladyville would be a good fit for Muskoka as to send their own volunteers to.
And this was a children's home.
And so then it was time for some fun, so we headed out to do some ziplining, which was a lot of fun. There's a lot of hiking involved because you have to hike up to the, the platforms to go off, which is to be expected, but the ziplining itself was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, I think, a little bit more than you did.
I thought it was fun also for the first few times, but after a while I'm like, yeah, we're just ziplining.
Just doing the same thing over
Doing the same thing over and over again. I have much more fun. I have much more fun riding my motorcycle.
You liked the road to the ziplining more than the ziplining itself.
It's true. But I don't know, maybe I'm not a zipliner. I'm a motorcycle rider.
I guess not. I'm a zipliner and a motorcycle rider.
But while we're there, they have like one of those combo package things where the other thing to do there is cave tubing, which is something that's very specific for Belize. There's only a few places in the world where you can do that. You're literally on an inner tube going through an underground cave.
So, but on the hike to there, we had some interesting experiences on the way. We had a guide show us around, and so he was pointing out, different interesting plants and trees and fruits.
And they had carvings that the Mayans would kind of carve on the outside of the caves, which would be the face of one of their gods, and we saw some of those as we went through.
We also saw some bats in those caves.
It's interesting. And then we'd seen this specific type of fruit called nansa throughout Mexico, and it's also in Central America. It's this little orange kind of cherry-looking thing. Tastes good, but we were able to try that for the first time.
And the other thing we got to try for the first time was termites. Our guide saw a termite nest on the side of a tree and stuck a stick in there and handed us a little sample.
We've already eaten crickets, right? So what's the big deal?
These are live.
These are live, yeah. So apparently termites come in 3 different flavors. The first one is wood.
Obviously, which is what I had.
And then another one is carrot, which is the one I had. And the third one is mint, which we didn't get a chance to try because we only tried one. But yeah, they're live termites.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'd eat them if I had to.
And so then from there we actually hopped in the river and got started with our cave tubing. You get in the river in your tube and just float along down the river. It was very relaxing. Our guide did all the steering for us.
And we have little headlamps so you can see on the inside of the caves, which gets super dark. You'd be pitch black without it.
Yeah, which is why most of our footage for that didn't come out so well.
Our camera's not a low light camera, at least the helmet camera we're using.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still really fun, really relaxing. We saw some magnificent viewpoints of caves and stalactites, and I really enjoyed that whole experience.
Yep.
So after that, we're going to head to Caye Caulker, but we need to find out how to get there first. So we parked our bikes. We met those bikers that we showed you earlier, and they offered us a place to park our bikes and a free ride out to the island. The thing is that it's on a chicken boat, and so we're sitting on the boat right now, and it's loaded up with chicken, and it's not really a passenger boat, and they made that clear, but it's even less of a passenger boat than I expected. But yeah, it looks fine, and we'll see how it goes. The main concern now is that there's a bridge up ahead that has barely enough clearance for this boat, So we're gonna have to duck inside the cargo holds when that happens. So let's see how this trip goes. So that bridge turned out to be fine, no big deal. We just ducked inside the cargo holds, it got dark for a second, and we popped right back out again. Hiding with the chicken.
Now it's dark.
Now it's dark. At least we know we're under the bridge now. And after that, the boat started picking up speed, and it was flying across the ocean.
It was going a little fast. This is like like you can see the sheer top of the boat that we're just kind of sitting on. No guardrails,
no handholds, somewhat slippery.
Nothing to keep us from flying off.
But that just makes it exciting.
Or nothing to keep my flip-flops from flying off into the ocean.
But yeah, it was fun. We made it there intact in one piece, and I really enjoyed the experience.
It was fun.
One of the more adventurous things I think we've done on the trip so far.
You won't find that in any guidebook.
And as we're going through, one of the guys on the boat pointed out that there are these things called fish camps. I didn't know fish camps were actually real. I always thought they were from a video game, and I expected murlocs to pop out of the water and start attacking us.
And so then once we were on the island, we decided it's time to catch up on our seafood, a specialty of the island.
And I caught up specifically on my lobster.
You had a lot of lobster on the island.
There was lobster all over the island, and it was all very fresh and very high quality. And you can cook it a bunch of different ways, and
everybody had their own take on it.
It was delicious.
We got lobster for 30, 40, 50, 60, depending on the size of lobsters, okay? We got snappers from 25 and up to. Streamer fish kebab is 25. Everything comes in two sides, like rice, potato, or salad.
This is the first lobster on the trip. It's the first place where it's actually been somewhat affordable. Like before, it's been like very expensive. This is like $15 or $20 or so, I think, which is really not bad for a large lobster dinner. I'm very much looking forward to it. You know, it's usually a good sign when like the kitchen's out in the open and you're, you know, you can see them actually making the food. And here they take it to a whole nother level where they actually have the kitchen on the street, and you order it from the street and then just come down and sit with it. Sit down with your food. So one of the things that Belize is known for is its awesome scuba diving.
And since I'm freshly scuba certified, we decided to take full advantage of that. And we saw a ton of interesting sea life while we were there, from eagle rays, eels, crab, conch, all kinds of stuff.
You know, we saw some sharks in Cancun, but here we saw lots of sharks. And we saw nurse sharks specifically in one of the dives, and they're just like little puppies.
Yeah,
like, they're really friendly.
Our dive master would catch one and flip it over on its back, and it would fall asleep, and then we could pet its belly and hold it ourselves, and it was fun, petting a shark.
Yeah, and we saw a big grouper on those same kind of dives.
Huge grouper.
And this is like kind of a protected area, so that's why this is abundant marine life, and we saw significantly more than we saw in Cancun, just for an example. But one of the things that Belize diving is known for specifically is the Blue Hole. This is a very, very famous dive site. It's basically an underground cave that goes straight down to 500 feet below sea level. And around the hole, it's only like 20 or 30 feet deep. And within that, there's some really interesting sea life. So this is probably one of the things that you're not supposed to do as a brand new diver.
It was fine.
Yeah,
you just listen to the instructions and follow them.
So it involves, you know, getting off the boat, swimming along. You can see sharks already, like big ones, as you're swimming along to get the spot where you're supposed to go down. And then you dive down, straight down to 120 feet. Which
as quickly as you can, safely.
Yeah, which is very, very deep as far as diving goes, with recreational diving at least. While you're there, you do some loops around some stalactites.
So you swim around the stalagmites and stalactites of what used to be this cave. It used to be above water, now it's underwater after the sea level rose. And then you start ascending, and as you ascend, you really notice all those sharks that you might have seen before.
And these aren't the nurse sharks that we saw before.
No.
These are sharks that have been known to eat people.
These are the mean ones.
But these sharks in the Blue Hole are nice.
We saw bull sharks, we saw the black tip reef shark.
Which are the sharky looking sharks as far as sharks go.
There have been known to be hammerheads, which we didn't see any of.
But yeah, even seeing those other ones was really cool. And they've never had an incident in the Blue Hole. It was still perfectly safe.
Sharks don't actually like scuba divers.
Yeah, and
too much metal.
And they go there every day, so they're used to seeing people probably. But I thought it was a really cool dive. I'm really glad we were able to do it.
Yeah, I was kind of scared at the beginning because, like you said, I was a new scuba diver.
Very deep dive. overhead environment
I'm
with
glad I
slide
did.
tights and man-eating sharks.
And so then our dive masters took us to an island for a very Belizean lunch, consisting of rice, beans, and stewed chicken.
And what we mean by typical Belizean cuisine, this is it as far as like what they serve in Belize. Every place you go, you know, maybe you can get hamburgers in the US or something like that. The equivalent of that is absolutely rice and beans and stewed chicken. And because of this, we're going to have it up on our website at hungryriders.com if anyone's interested in the recipe. And it's good. It's very tasty.
And one of the things that this island is known for is their booby reserve.
And I wanted to see those boobies.
I know you like the boobies.
Yes.
So we went out to find these boobies, and they turned out to be birds. These birds have a little nesting ground on the island somewhere, and it was cool to watch them.
Yep. And after that, we did a little bit more diving on the way back to the shore, and then we caught a water taxi instead of a chicken boat back to the mainland. So we met up with our bikes in Belize City, and they're totally fine and secure as we left them. And Pedro, the other biker that offered to watch them for us, offered to escort us to our next destination.
He actually grew up in an area of Belize where we were planning on riding through anyway, and so he was planning on taking a Saturday ride anyway, so he decided to show us around his hometown.
It's actually a Mennonite community, and he gave us a bit of the history on that as well, and it's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
So apparently 50 years ago or so, the Mennonites went to this particular area in Belize, bought some land. They're known for their farming, so that's what they did.
Well, so apparently previous to that, Belize imported all their food, everything. They didn't produce anything themselves, and so when the Mennonites arrived, they decided, hey, we can grow rice and beans and raise chickens, so they did. And they now make, what is it, like 80% of the chickens in Belize?
Just this one community.
Right.
Yeah. Which is really impressive when you think about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're basically feeding the entire country at this point.
Right.
With this, there's a few communities of Mennonites throughout there. And it's a just really interesting success story, and we rode around through their farmland and you know, awesome roads. It's kind of its own little country within Belize with their own rules and the way they do things. And I found it really interesting. And thank you so much, Pedro, for showing us around, and we really appreciated it.
Definitely. And as we were heading out of that area, there wasn't a bridge. Instead, there was a barge, hand cranked. So we got, as motorcycles, we got to cut in front of all the cars that were waiting to get across because we are smaller and are lighter and can fit places that cars can't.
We could basically fit on the ramp itself rather than having to be on the barge because the bikes are so light.
Yep. And so we got to ride a hand crank barge across the river. That was fun.
It was fun.
And from there, we headed off into Guatemala, which is for next episode. So that's it for this episode. Until then, you can reach us at feedback@hungryriders.com if you want to shoot us an email. Otherwise, we're on Twitter, twitter.com/hungryriders. That's where you can find all the up-to-date info. These videos are a little bit behind, but Twitter has all the current info if you're wondering where we are right now. And Facebook also, we're at facebook.com/hungryriders.
And please subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already. And of course, follow our whole trip at hungryriders.com.
See you next time.